You're listening to The Facts. The Fellas and Facts podcast starts right now.
Well, folks, we made it. We are finally on Apple. Excited is so much of an understatement. I never thought in a million years I would become a content creator. It's just amazing, overwhelming, hardworking. A lot goes into this. I also launched my Facebook page within 24 hours. I had 48 new followers. I just want to say thank you for everyone and their continued support. Continue to always tune in each week and listen to our show. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube at the Fellas and Facts Official, because we are official. Also, if you want to write to me or just want to become a future guest on the show, you can email me at thefellas1295@gmail.com. We are going back to the beginning. Last show, I gave you a preview of my life, and I had a concerned mother comment to me saying, "You're so brave to discuss your childhood and the trauma." My father is an incredible man. My mother is brave. My father was the typical father that every kid needs to have. Protector, a supporter. He had food on the table, a roof over my head, clothes on my back. I am very proud to have his last name. Humans were meant to make mistakes. God gave us free will and to be free thinkers. I am not by any means bashing what my father. I am going to tell you that everyone has a trauma and the reason why they do things. To the day that that man died, he had the most guilt of throwing me out. You have no idea what that does to a father, to a parent. He was there for every special occasion in my life. My mother would tear the shirt off her back. Did she go down wrong roads? What human or person has? We all been through a rough time, a rough patch in our life, and gone down a few bad roads. But if we believe in whatever God that you believe in, they will get you on the right path. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I am a Catholic, and I do believe in God. To some who do listen, who will possibly listen in the future, you can believe in whatever you want. There's no judgment here. Absolutely no judgment. I lived in a somewhat quiet suburban town at the time, outside of Chicago. I know a lot of people get really sketchy and, sensitive about, "Oh, you're not from Chicago." No, well, no shit. I'm not from the typical neighborhoods of Chicago. I get it. But if I'm going out of town, damn it, I am going to say I'm from Chicago. Nobody knows Orland Park. Nobody knows Evergreen Park, Oak Lawn, Tinley. They're going to say, "Where's that at?" That's too much long of a fucking explanation to say where you're from in a quick conversation. So I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, 20 minutes south. close to Northwest Indiana. And we lived in to me, it was a perfect house. I never saw any house bigger than mine. One story, no basement. You had a living room, kitchen, all attached, kind of like a mud room, laundry room, whatever you call it, bathroom. Parents had a bathroom, a half bathroom in their room. My brother had his room. I had my room, but our family room was attached to the back. And so technically I had two rooms. I love that house. We had a pool in the backyard, swing set, detached garage, long driveway. During the summertime, my cousins would come over and they would spend long periods of time there. We would play in the backyard, pools, you name it. Summers were the best as a little kid. 4th of July parties were better, even though in Illinois, we are not supposed to shoot fireworks off. My father got us some, and a whole block got 'em. We had neighbors come from all over, our family over. We are barbecuing, having a good time, shooting off fireworks. The memories that I can go back to, I wish we had those again. Halloween time, everybody decorated. You were outside, past streetlight, curfew, just trick or treating door to door. Everybody had their light on too. You had the old man who was passing out pop. Some of your neighbors who knew you really well were giving out the nice the big candy, the candy that every kid wanted. And every year we would go to the local party city and pick out our costumes, what we wanted to be. Christmas, unfortunately, my birthday is during Christmas, and some families do not celebrate both Christmas and your birthday at the same time, even though I'm a week before Christmas. I had a birthday party with presents. Christmas, Santa came. There was no either or. My aunt, who was like a second mom to me, also lived in town, in the same town we did. It was my dad's childhood home. That was second home to me. That's where we had our Christmases, our Christmas mornings, our Christmas dinners. Our birthday parties were held there. And the nostalgia of a 90s Christmas, no one can ever beat. No one can ever beat. I don't care what people say now. People can decorate with their fucking Hobby Lobby shit, but nostalgia, Christmas, and Halloween, that's my kind of style of holiday decorating. And I still do it to this day. Vacations during the summer, everyone went to Six Flags. Some lucky kids went to Disney World. My Disney World was Indiana Beach, beautiful Lake Schaefer in Monticello, Indiana. Get up early morning, pack the car. You couldn't sleep because the next day you were going on vacation. You were going to your favorite place, the place that you loved that you enjoyed every minute and didn't want to go home. So you wake up groggy, wiping your little eye boogers out of your eye. And then your family and you go to this wonderful amusement park. And your dad and your mom made the best vacations ever. Some nights there were some days where my dad was a cop in the town at the time. He was in between jobs. My dad did everything. I thought he was the coolest person. I still think so to this day. A lot of people say you're a big fan of your father. I am. I'm just like him. Stubborn, can argue, but have a heart of gold, man. I can't say nothing bad about him. Some of his choices, oh yeah, I could say some bad things about that. But as you will learn from me, We all learn why our parents did what they did till now. At the end of it, you continue to look back at your past and you can say to yourself, damn, I thought my dad was mean at the time. Yeah, he did make some bad, poor choices, but he was doing it for my good. And again, what more can you say once you start to mature and realize this? My dad was a police officer, and I know a lot of police officers get a lot of flack nowadays. Again, that is an incredible profession that I once was pursuing, but unfortunately, my life took a different path. I was a fan of Cops. I used to run around the house when the theme song came on. And on special occasions, my dad would come home with the police car. And as a little kid, they used to, so police cars have like a emergency kind of like shut off. It's called a kill switch. And what that does is, you ever see how cops can leave their cars running while they're away, but they still have the keys? That's what it did. So he would leave the door unlocked and he knew I would be in the driver's seat acting like I was on patrol. Turn on all the lights, the sirens. I was living my paradise. I also was a young, excuse me, I was a young, naive kid who thought that calling 911 would get in contact with my dad because I knew my dad was the police. And funny story, I was a chubby kid, loved food, still do to this day. And at the time, the popular brand of ice cream was Edie's, and it was a cherry chocolate chip, and it was a hot day. I wanted some ice cream, and my mom said, no, you can't have any. You haven't had dinner yet. You're going to spoil your dinner. You can't have it. That didn't stop. I would sneak food, but again, she was in the kitchen. I couldn't sneak it at the time. So I called 911. Didn't somebody said on the other, the dispatcher on the other line said, hey, 911, what's your emergency? I said, oh crap. I, you know, hung up. All of a sudden, here's two police officers at my door talking to my mother. My mom says, oh, Josh, come here for a second. I said, shit. Here we go. As a kid, I didn't literally say that. But now I can say, oh shit, here I go. Little kid, gonna get a spanking as I've dialed 911 by accident, supposedly. And I can hear the cop talking to my dad because they knew they worked with one another. And fortunately, I didn't know he worked at a different police department at the time. And my dad told that story from when I was the ripe age of 9 years old all the way until I was 18. He also tells a story of when my brother was throwing one of his tantrums as a little kid. It was during Christmas time, and my father said in a, stern voice, son, Santa's coming. If you keep acting like this, he's not going to bring you any toys. And with seriousness on my brother's face, he blurted out, fuck Santa. Just like that. My father just smirked, didn't want to laugh because that wasn't inappropriate behavior. And my mother said, nope, we're not doing this. And he got his spanking and he was sent to his room. But those were the stories that were shared at family outings as we grew older, just to embarrass us. But sometimes as a child, you witnessed some of the harsh things that your parents went through. I remember a couple times being woken up in the middle of the night of them arguing. My mother at the time, you know, was back and forth with being sad and happy. She was so strong. She didn't break in front of us kids until we got older and we started realizing it. And there were times where, in any typical argument with my parents, my mom would always think my dad was cheating on her. And he would get all upset, and you would hear him slamming things and threatening to leave her as she's crying and he's packing up his stuff. You hear it, and sometimes you hear some slams and some hits and slaps, and you don't even know. I don't even know who was hitting who, but it scared me as a kid. I would cry, and then my mom and dad would both come into my room, and they would see me crying hysterically and would calm me down and said everything was all right. And then the next day, it seemed like nothing happened. All my dad's stuff was back, his closets. But that would continue a couple times, over and over again. Sometimes it would be about money, bills not paid, whatever the case may be. But they always seemed to make up. I always heard stories of my father when he was a kid. He had a younger brother who developed cancer at a young age. And we are very known for it. If you look up Bobby Mercer from the Chicago Cubs, the '70s Cubs, there's an article mentioning this. How my uncle, who was only 12, found out he had cancer when his parents were keeping it from him because they didn't want to bring his spirits down. They wanted to protect him at all cost, and they wanted to protect him as a child. But the announcer said it over a live air that Scotty was dying of cancer, and that Bobby Mercer, who was having a very tough year, was going to do a home run for him. And he did. He played his best game, did his home run, but at the end, my uncle found out that he had cancer and he was dying because they didn't have a cure. My father, not too older than him, was kind of put to the side. And no fault to my grandparents. You have this kid who had to really grow up and take charge of his own life because his little brother was dying of cancer. Then a couple years later, his mom died, my grandmother. That's tough. Death is tough, especially to ones who we love. Nobody can get over it. Then my dad's father remarried, and my dad was in his teenage years. All he did was worked really hard, had a part-time job, did what he had to do. His stepmother wasn't the best. Very evil. That was the definition of an evil stepmother. Would, threaten to hit him with a broom. His sister would defend him. It was not a good situation. And a year before I was born, my dad lost his father from cancer as well. So you have your little brother that died of cancer, your mom died of cancer, now your dad's dying of cancer, and they decided to have hospice in at the house that he was living at, his childhood home. So he's sitting in the living room with his father all week, and his father's all week and trying to make him laugh, even though he knows what's going to happen. My dad would get teary eyed telling this story. He would always say, my dad knew what was happening, but he took out his false teeth and tried to put a smile on my face. And then we said a few words, and then he passed away. His eyes were still open, so I shut them. And then that was it. I don't think nobody had a time to ask him how he was. So you built up all this anger, frustration, confusion. You become a police officer. You deal with criminals, people who don't care, see things that you don't want to see. And he was one of those old school cops that would see things. When I was born, I remember him telling a story that that his department got into a car chase that went into Chicago because the father abducted a little boy or his son, or a man abducted his son, or some kid that he did not know. Whatever the case may be, I don't have an article. It's been a minute since I've heard the story. But whatever the case may be, a man abducted a child. His department is chasing. It starts off in his jurisdiction, goes into my uncle's jurisdiction. So he's with him, leads into Chicago. They're at a standoff. The man's holding the son or the child at gunpoint. Sniper takes the first hit, one shot, so the suspect's gone. Bad guy's gone. That night they go out. My parents went out for dinner, and they were all worried and cautious that a waitress came up and said, "Oh, your son is so cute," and, tried to, tried to hold me. And my dad just jumped up and said, "No, no, not today. We're not having that." You're telling me that a man that saw evil, faced evil, didn't have any trauma, but instead of taking it out the right way, he took it out on the innocent ones. And unfortunately, that was my mother. But my mother, being the true warrior she is, she stayed with him to support him. And she knew deep down that that wasn't the man that she married. But she was going to help fix. And she did that. Over the years, my father, who had type 2 diabetes, started having health problems. The first one was he had an infection in his right foot, which led to a big hole. And she nursed him, fed him, took care of him. There were times where we weren't on the back spindle a little bit, but I didn't mind because my father was a priority. But when it came to my mom, my mom was very talented. She was very handy. She would paint. Most of the rooms in our house had her design in them, her eye. And she would paint. If she had a project, she knew what to do. Tuck porting, this woman did everything. One particular afternoon, she was painting our bathroom. And of course, being on the sink, not having the right step ladders, she missed the ladder and fell and did something to her neck, dislocated some disc. And she was in a neck brace for some time after her surgery. But she had a episode where it was something like something took over her. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't my mother. And she had to be restrained by paramedics because that's how out of control she was. She threw candle light. She would usually have these candle holders, tea light sets. And my brother, who was young, didn't know what was going on, thought that she was getting angry. So he got angry at her and he said, "Stop it up. Stop, Mom," and threw one of the candle holders against the wall. I wasn't there. I didn't witness it, but the stories that were told later down the road, that's what really happened. She was so powerful that when the ambulance and the paramedics arrived and she was getting transported, that she broke through her restraints. Little kids, you don't know why that happens. It was a scary thought, but she came out of it and we continued. We continued our lives and everything was just fine. So I went through kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. Life was great. One summer day, I remember it was early summer, right before school was going to end for the year. I was playing outside with my neighborhood friend, and we were playing, and all of a sudden, the way that where we lived was kind of like a little forest preserve was behind our house. There was a walking trail, and then more forest or trees, and then an apartment complex was right behind us, which led to the mall. So I remember a man with a white shirt on the walking trail shot his gun at someone back there and then looked and pointed it to me. All I did was what my dad taught me was get down. If you hear gunshots, get down. And if you see someone, don't move. I didn't move. Police were called. And a week later, our house was on the market for sale. We had chance to move after looking at so many houses in Indiana. We finally moved down south to a quiet town in Will County. And I was the new kid on the block, beginning of fourth grade. That was tough. You're a chubby kid going into a new class, not knowing anybody. Your first year in a new school. Oh my God. I don't ever want to be a new kid on the block. Never, ever. I found two good friends at the time. Got through fifth grade. Hung out with the same friends over the summer. Started getting into my age. But I still love to decorate and help my mom during the holidays. And I was a nerd. I was a real nerd. Different. I wasn't like the cool kids. They were listening to 103.5 Kiss FM and going to the gas station, to the subway, because gas stations out there had conjoined amenities. My mother never let me leave the house, let alone go to a gas station. She thought it was too unsafe. But when grew up a little more, she started to see my maturity a little bit. I wasn't mature yet, folks. Fifth grade, not that old yet. And we were kings of the neighborhood, going to the park. I'm getting into MySpace, and everybody remembers MySpace. I thought it was so cool, customizing my own page, having my music play as soon as somebody uh, would join my page. We would still hang out, and I would bring my older cousin at the time. I'm going to call her HH because I'm not giving anybody's names out. She would come over because I was lonely. I only had two friends, and she was the best cousin in the world to come over, and we would have a ball of a time, goofing off, staying up late. The memories are there. I did have two other cousins, one who was a year old younger than me, and one who was the first official niece of the family. I'm going to call them KN and JN. And they were at the Calumet City house, the old house that I lived in. They would be the ones that were coming over for summer, hanging out in the pool. They decided to move as well, just a year before we did, to a new house. And when your older cousin, who is way older than you, starts to get into her teenage years, it starts to they start to not hang around you as much because you're a little kid. What kind of preteen wants to hang out or hang around with a little kid? So my cousin HH would come over, and she would be the same way. But she would come over because her mother was abusive. My mother tried to protect her from that. We're going to get into that later because that's a whole different other story. But my cousin and I, we were unstoppable. We were untouchable. We laughed, we joked, we cried. And at this point, life was great until sixth grade. That summer before sixth grade started, we had a family vacation planned for Indiana Beach. Now, again, we went to Indiana Beach every year since I was 4. But this time was particularly different. Started off as normal. We were having a good time, riding all the rides, eating. Again, chubby kid, loves to eat. Until we got a phone call from my aunt. My cousin KN, who was 16 at the time, was in the hospital. My mom, on the other line, was talking to my aunt, and they said all that happened was she was at a wedding, started to feel like she was having the flu, and then all of a sudden her temperature spiked. And I'm not talking just a normal 101, 102. She was that temperature was up there, 105, 106. They were in the hospital the whole time. We thought, okay, she's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. The last night of our vacation before we left the next day, we got a call in the middle of the night. My father, who picked up the call because my mother at this time was frantically crying, worried, couldn't talk on the phone. And all I heard was my dad say, okay, so she is gone. And I don't know what came over me, but I just started crying. My brother's crying. My mother's crying. It was the first official death of our family. And at a young age of 16. The next day, we packed up, got on the road. We came home, and me, my brother, and my mother went to the house like of my aunts, and we met, and everybody was there. They were crying. They didn't know what to do. They were in disbelief. The room, all he felt was sorrow. And my little cousin Jan, he was he kept everything close to the chest. He didn't really show emotion, but I knew he was feeling it. Then the family started coming in. They wanted to stay with us. My cousin HH came over. We were just in disbelief. We didn't know what was going on. Now, HH and KN was born in 1991, HH 93, and I was 95. So you got KN, the first cousin, first niece, HH, the second niece, and then I was the first official boy, the nephew of the family, grandson. We went to the funeral home and saw her, and that is not a picture I wanted to see of somebody. She didn't even look like herself. Her face swollen. She was laid out in a pink suit and a pink coffin because her favorite color was pink. During 2006, that era with let's paint your room bright pink, put Green Day posters, 3 Day Grace posters, all kinds of posters all over your wall, and have a girly vanity with all your makeup and perfumes and hairsprays, hairbrushes, and all that. That was my cousin, a girly girl to the very end. And there she was, laying in open rest. I didn't know what grief was. I was a young kid. This was the first time I ever felt something like this. I Sixth grade was just a struggle for me. That was the beginning of failing grades. And I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop thinking of things. I wish I was, I wish we had more time together because we were so close in the early years. Then she got older and she had to hang out. She wanted to hang out with her friends besides her little cousins, which I can understand. I get it. I didn't get it at the time, but I got it now. There were times where, again, this time period, ever since we moved from our old house, we had two major incident or events happen in our family. At one point, my dad was fired from the job that he loved for an unknown reason. I don't remember the story. I don't want to go back. But again, it tells me that that kind of man would do anything for his family because we still had a Christmas, we still had our birthdays. Even though he was at home, he found work and he still provided for his family. Then we had the first death of the family. And that's when everything began to collapse. Sixth grade started getting better. I passed. Seventh grade, not doing too good this time, but I passed. And that summer before eighth grade, that's when everything changed. My mother changed. My mother started to get really weird and had weird behavior. And I remember some nights where she would sit over my brother's bed and watch him sleep. And my dad would wake up and yell and scream and said, "What are you doing? He's dead. He's dead." My father said, "No, he's not dead. There's blood. Look on his pillow." Well, at the time, my brother had an ear infection and it kind of leaked on the pillow. And my dad, who at this time got promoted, was an investigator now, would get called out every so often. He had a case, had to go in the middle of the night, whatever the case may be. So sometimes he was away from home more often. But my mother would wake me up and said, "We're losing the house. We can't pay the bills. Can't do this." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm dead. I don't know what you're talking about." She used to cook dinner, but then now, at this point in her life, we were kind of on our own a little bit. And my dad would come home after long days and would take us out to eat and said, "Boys, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. We got to do something. We got to do something." So there were times where we would have to separate from mom. And the one time my dad knew what to do was to take her to the hospital and get her evaluated. Well, on their way to the hospital, she gets out of the car and starts running away. But she gets her help. She comes back. We think everything's fine. She's doing okay, somewhat, very quiet. But then it starts happening again. She's not showering. She's not eating. And one day I was tired of it. So dad said, "All right, we're done. Summertime now." I was lucky enough to join the police cadets at his department. And I would always want to volunteer for every event, every little ride along, just to get away. That was my go-to safe space. And I thank all the creators, the leaders, the instructors who allowed me at an early age to join. Because I met some incredibly fantastic, awesome people during this. My second family. So one night, all of us, my brother, my dad, at a McDonald's restaurant, decided we were going to pack up, take our dog, and stay with our aunt in in my hometown, my old hometown. I remember the night when we were leaving and the look on my mom's face as we were backing up, and I see the headlights shine on her. She was holding the car. You can hear her skin rub against the car, or her hand rub against the car. And that look of disappointing, sad. regret. It just made me feel some sort of way. Folks, this is true emotion. And I felt very bad for her. So I called her up that night. I said, "Are you okay?" She goes, "Josh, I'm not okay. You left us. You left me." So my dad continued to get help, try to get her help. She refused, so on and so forth. My brother wanted to go back, so my dad allowed that. She got her help, and we moved back. I was at an event or a ride along with my father one day after we were moved back, and he says, "Let's go to lunch." Okay. We went to lunch, and I met this woman. Her name was, we're going to call her M. She brought her nephew with. My dad introduced her as my friend. So we had lunch. She was introduced to me, asked me a couple questions. How do I like being a police cadet? I said, I love it. Always wanted to be a police officer just like my dad. Typical lunch, meet and greet. Left, and that was it. That's all I saw of her. A couple weeks later, I was cooking hot dogs on the grill for me and my brother, and my mom came out and said, "Your dad's here. You got to go. You're going to leave. You're going to leave me again. So you got to go." So she turns off the grill, throws the hot dogs in the garbage. And I look out to the driveway and I didn't see Dad. I'm like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Dad, are you coming home or are you picking us up? Because Mom says that she said that she talked to you." And my dad was like, "Nope. Keep in mind you, he's at work." And I said, "Okay. She's just experiencing a an episode. We'll get through it." So I turned the grill back on, throw some more hot dogs on the grill because it's dinner time. We're hungry. Me and my brother need something to eat. So I was capable enough. I was learning how to cook, feed ourselves, not just box cereal. She does it again. Called Dad up. I said, "Dad, she's not allowing me to make food." "Well, if it starts getting worse, bud, you know what to do. Call the ambulance. We'll get her help again." Try it again for the third time. And she says, "You got to go." And she just starts getting irate. And I take Brandon and I go into the room right next to the laundry room, lock ourselves in it. I call 911 and I remember what I said. I said, "I need an ambulance at my address. Mom needs to be evaluated. Can you please help?" Dispatcher got the information, but in the background, you can hear my mom bang on the door and kick it, and she's screaming. So instead of sending the ambulance, at the time, they send two police officers. I explained my story, and I said, all I just want is for her to get the help. The officer took it under his discretion to arrest her for disorderly conduct. So here we are, watching my mom get put into handcuffs and put in the back of a police car. I called Dad and said, "Hey, this is what's happening." Police officer talks to him, says, I'm on my way home from work. Give me about 30 minutes. So the officer can't leave us home alone. So we get loaded up in the back of a police car and we drove to the police department. I wrote my statement of what happened to the best of my ability. Dad was there. My dad said, "We just need to get her help. Is there any way that we can drop the charges?" And he did. Got the charges dropped. She was on her way to the hospital. Then my dad then asked about an order of protection because he was tired of this. And that's how I was introduced to the courts. Went up with my dad to the courthouse in Will County and saw the judge to grant the order of protection. My mom was in the hospital. Now she was under longer evaluation, just the typical 48 hours. And she came out and she was a different person, very happy. But at this time, my dad had no more. She was never coming back to the house. So folks, again, you got the first two episodes of my story. You get the introduction, and now it's the foundation of what the discussions are going to be like. So now you know my backstory from start to finish. We just got up to 8th grade. There's still 11 years to go in discussions. So our next episode, I am having my next guest. She is a fabulous person, great heart. I knew her since I was a senior in high school, and we've been friends ever since. I am going to bring Caitlin up here. We're going to discuss our favorite times in high school together and go over some of the difficulties that we shared during our high school years. Even though I was done as she was coming on, she was a freshman, I was a senior, we still lived through it. Hers was a different time period, but again, it's all similar. So listen into next time. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time on the Fellas and Facts. Time businesses, the mom and pop model is always the best way to go. It shows quality over quantity. I know an incredible woman who takes quality serious. If you're looking for an upgrade to your current footwear, Margaret Simplest Shoes Ray will always have the answer. Check her out on Facebook at Margaret, one word, Simplest Shoes with a Z, or call 708-953-0015 for more information. Information will be posted on the Fellas and Facts Facebook.